Hello drawing students, this is a demo on gesture drawing, and what you're going to need for this is newsprint paper. You need a lot of sheets, so you're going to want that whole pad. That's what this is right here. You're going to need vine charcoal, that's that burnt wood that you can snap and make into smaller pieces. You want a couple of pieces of that, and as you can see here, I have a plethora of objects. You want a lot of different objects of different textures, preferably, and ranging from simple to more complex. So you see here I have vegetables, potatoes, and a pepper and a tomato. I have more complex things as well, like this camera, these two cameras right here. These plants are kind of complex as well. Grab like some mugs or some glasses. Those would be more simple objects and would work well for this as well, but you do want a range of the simple to the complex. So grab some of those, grab those materials, and come on back. Okay, so what a gesture drawing is a quick, spontaneous drawing that is fluid, consistent, captures the energy and essence of a form, provides all of the necessary elements of a form in a concise manner, but also works to provide interior and exterior information. A long definition, but it packs in a lot about what a gesture drawing is. It is very fluid and consistent. Those are those two words to hang on to: fluid, consistent, and captures the energy and essence of a form. I would just mull over those words as you're drawing, because that is really what this is, capturing the energy and essence of a form. And a stagnant object might not look like it has a lot of energy to it, but you give it energy in your drawing. All right, and before we begin, we also need to talk about axis lines, because that is one of the first things you need to define when you're drawing your gesture drawing. What an axis line is an imaginary line that goes through the core of the center of a form. So to give more clarity to that, I'll go ahead and take this pepper. Peppers are really good for this kind of a demonstration, really all vegetables. And I have this little metal skewer. You can also think of the Earth's axis and how it tilts on its axis and revolves on its own axis. You can look at a sphere and think, oh, well, an axis line that goes through it would just go straight up and down, while the Earth rotates on an axis on an angle. So if I were to put this through this pepper and kind of show you, this goes through the core of this form, goes through the stem, out the bottom. It's not exactly correct, but you know what I mean. And if you put this at an angle and were to draw it, you can see how the axis line is not just a straight vertical line. No, what divides this through its core goes through the stem and out the bottom like this. So if this was at an angle like this and we were drawing it, we would first draw that diagonal line to help organize this form. Take this mug, for instance. The axis line that goes through the core of the center of the form would actually go through the middle here and out the bottom. So when you are drawing this for the first time, you are just going to draw a vertical line, because this is a vertical axis line. And the other thing you need to be thinking about simultaneously while you're thinking about axis lines are the general shapes that make up your objects. Sometimes with a more simple object, it could just be a sphere or a cylinder that makes up that object, but it could be more complex. So with those more complex objects that you're grabbing, for instance, if I take this camera out, it's obviously made up of a couple different shapes. It's made up of a rectangular prism as well as a cylinder right on it. So for instance, say this is at an angle in front of you and you're drawing it, you have two axis lines actually. You have one that goes like this and one that goes like this. It goes through this cylinder, but it would go, just so you can see more of that axis line, it would go like this at an angle. So sometimes there are more than one axis line within objects. Just one more, for instance, hopefully you grabbed a shoe. Those are really good for this, for gesture drawings. So for this sandal, there are two different forms going on here. There's one going on right here, but then there's one going on right here as well. So I would argue that there's actually two axis lines. There's one like this, and there's one that goes up and down like this. All right, well, I'm gonna get cleaned up and we're gonna choose one object to get started. Okay, so I've chosen a simple object to start with, and you can choose the same, a mug if you would like, but definitely a simpler object to start. A little note about posture and how to move forward with this, how to start. I typically in class will have you take a deep breath in and out before we start. Roll your neck a little bit and move your arms around in a circular motion, your drawing arm. I would recommend that you do a standing posture. If you have an easel, that's great. If not, and I know a lot of you don't have those, that's fine. But if you can, maybe put your paper on a wall. You can tear these out sheet by sheet and put them on a wall. We're going to be doing quite a few of these. In total, you're going to do 15 of these for this assignment. They're very quick and they are timed. So keep that in mind. The steps that I normally take when drawing a gesture is first I give myself an area to stay within on the paper. We want these drawings to take up the whole paper. We don't want to draw a little mug over here. No, we're going to take up the whole paper. We're going to draw huge objects for every one of your objects. So to do that, to make sure I don't go outside and I don't go too small, is I tell myself a top and a bottom to stay within, to give myself an area. Now I gave this short area because of the general proportions of that mug. It's not really long and it's not really short. So I gave myself this area right here. The next thing you want to determine, so the second step would be the axis line. And as we've already determined, the axis line for the mug is a straight vertical line. And then the next thing you want to do is draw the general shapes that make up that object. So for this, and you can go about this in different ways, and you can draw the same object several times and draw it different ways every time. That's what's fun. So for this, what I would do is the top mug part has a ovular shape, right, or an ellipse actually, it's not an oval. An elliptical shape. The bottom has this kind of a cone with a blunted bottom. And then there's a handle that comes out like this, and I'm thinking about, okay, where does that handle come out and where does it enter back into the object? I'm thinking about negative space as well, which is the space between things, between positive space. And then if I have time, I'm going to think about interior and exterior information. And that would be interior and exterior contours, which there aren't a ton with a mug, but there's some, and I would just spend some time giving myself some more detail. I didn't even time myself for this because I knew I was just going to be talking to you through it, but I would then take some time to kind of fix my proportions. I made it a little too long, a little too blunted, and if I have time, I will add value, but I'm not going to think about that right now. And I also made this a little too shallow. I'm standing above it, and I can see a little bit more of the inside of that mug there. So that's the general idea. And again, that's a really simple one. Again, the steps that we went through, we determined a top and a bottom to give ourselves an area to work within. We determined the axis line. Just put that in real quick, shouldn't take more than 1 second. Those first two steps take less than 3 seconds. Seriously. Give yourself a top and a bottom, the axis line right there, and then you determine 2 or 3 general shapes that make up that object. And then if you have time, move to interior and exterior information. So I'm going to do a couple of timed ones, and I might fast forward the footage for you. But what I want you to do are 5 2-minute gestures, 5 1-minute gestures, and 5 30-second gestures. Another thing that I don't know that I mentioned before is exactly how you're holding your vine. You're not holding it like this. You're not holding it like a pencil. You're holding it between your thumb and your forefinger like this. You're keeping this very shallow so that you can really rest your fingertips on the paper. Okay, so I have my timer all set up here, and I'm going to do this more complex house plant here. I'm going to do a 2-minute gesture of this plant, and I'm going to kind of talk you through it as I go. Okay, and go. So I give myself the top and the bottom first, and then this plant has an axis line that is vertical. Not all of your objects will have a vertical axis line. And the next thing I do is I'm going to divide the object up into its general shapes. I'm doing this general pot shape down here. I started with an ellipse, very free about it. Notice how I'm moving my whole arm as I'm doing this. I am not very strict. I am not like this. I am very far away. I'm holding my arm out like this, and I'm very open about it. Next thing I do is I'm going to start up here and start working on the leaves, and I work my way down. And very general, look, I'm not putting any detail in here because I don't want to overthink it. I don't want to over determine what these shapes are. I'm just going to let the general contours of this object inform me on what to do. And then I move towards interior and exterior contours if I have time. So here I go, I'm just giving myself a little bit more detail up here on what these leaves are doing. And a little bit more information up here. This is a really wide leaf. And then I'll go back down here. How much time do I have left? 30 seconds. And I will give myself a little bit more detail down here. No mistakes. You can't just sit here and erase what you did. You just work through it. You can kind of smudge things out if you want really quickly, but no eraser used here. Again, very fluid with my arm. Look, I have all the time in the world. I have 15 seconds left. I can do whatever I want with this drawing. Really notice my arm, what it's doing. I'm not staying in one place at all. I'm not trying to determine anything. Oh, geez, that's really... Notice how much my arm was moving. My arm was moving up and down the whole time. I was not constricted. I was not up against this paper like this. I was far away from it. I moved my whole arm, and I'm holding my charcoal like this. I am not constricted at all. If you as the artist are constricted, your drawing will be constricted. And that's the opposite of what a gesture drawing is. A gesture drawing is open, it's fluid, it's consistent, and it captures the energy and essence of the form. Okay, so I'm gonna do a shoe because hopefully you got one. I'm sure you have shoes around your house, and I always pull out a shoe during gesture drawing. It provides enough simple but also complex information to draw. And keep in mind, you do have a different angle on this. When I draw this, it's looking more like that. But if I did that from my angle, that would be more of a straight-on view. And so keep in mind, we really don't ever want to draw things really straight on. It just provides a really stagnant drawing that's not interesting to look at, and it's not interesting to draw. You might think that it's simpler to do, but it just doesn't make for a good drawing. So again, you have a shoe, in this case a sandal. You're not going to place it in front of you like this. You're going to put it at an angle to kind of give yourself give it a more interesting drawing. You don't really want to waste any of your time when you're making a drawing. Go ahead and just make it look good as best as you can. So that's what I'm doing here with all of my objects. They're at an angle. They're providing more of a dynamic composition for me. Okay, and the first thing I think about when I look at this is it's no longer a vertical object, is it? It's a horizontal object. So I'm not going to draw this shoe on a vertical paper. I'm going to flip my paper. I'm going to go like this. Okay? So, first assess, is it a vertical object or is it a horizontal one? Okay? This happens to be a horizontal one. And then now my top and my bottom are no longer really here and here. I might actually determine here and here where I'm going to stay within because it's longer than it is taller. Again, before I start, so don't waste my time, very fluid, very open. You're moving your whole arm. This is something I have to tell you a lot on our gesture drawing day, but I'm not there with you when you're doing it. So just remember, you're moving your whole arm. You are not up against the drawing paper like this. You're distant from it. You're moving your whole arm. It's very fluid. It's very consistent. Capturing energy and essence. You have to have energy to put into the drawing for it to have energy. Okay? All right, here we go, and go. So I'm going to just establish where This is going to stay within the front and the back. Sorry. And an access line here, remember, but there's also an access line over here. It might be a little bit too big. And then I have a general shape of the sandal bottom right here. General shape of the sandal bottom. I think I'm a little too long. And I have this general shape that's going on here. And try and start working on these straps as best I can. Gets pretty complex in there. It's a complex object. And up like this. If I'm able to be that specific, probably not. And we will start to look at this top here. Trying to find that before I run out of time. And this comes out to about here. Okay, you can see what I'm doing. And there we go. Don't know how much time I have left, but not a lot. And strap that kind of goes like this. And I'm constantly looking. Do you see how much my head is moving back and forth? Do you see how much I'm really observing the object and looking less and less at my drawing than at the object? Because that object really needs to inform me of what to do. I can't stop looking at the object because then I've determined what it's supposed to look like. And I need to constantly observe and be told what it looks like. Okay, so it's not that bad. I did miss a line right here to kind of divide the bottom of the sandal up there. It's not that bad for a 2-minute one. Pretty complex for that one. Again, we're going to do 5 2-minute, 5 1-minute, and 5 30-second. So let me go ahead and do 1 30-second one for you to really show you how it goes. Okay, I'm going to draw this little tape measure in 30 seconds. And good luck. All right, and go. And here's my side, here's this side. I'm going to give myself this axis line. There's an axis line right here. The general shape of this tape measure here. And give myself some depth here. Stanley. And tape measure. Look at that. Could have done it in 10. No, not really. And change this shape because it's not entirely correct. Okay. All right, so that is your assignment. 5 2-minute gestures, 5 1-minute gestures, and 5 30-second gestures. Again, the first thing that you do, you establish the top and the bottom or the sides to give yourself an area to work within. You establish the axis lines, if there are more than one, and then you start to establish 2 or more general shapes of the object to organize that shape. And then, if you have time, the 4th step is work on interior and exterior contours. And all that time you're thinking about an open arm, you're not constricted, you're not right up against the paper, you're not at all concerned with working from one end and going to the other. I see that happen all the time. You are working all over the paper, your arm is going everywhere. That's how you're open, that's how you're fluid with your drawing. Again, the definition of a gesture drawing is a drawing that is quick, spontaneous, it captures the energy and essence of a form. It provides all of the necessary elements of a form in a concise manner, but it also works to provide interior and exterior information. And I'm really excited to see the gestures that you make at home.